Just a quick post-install review of my new All Things UTV tender springs. I added a lot of weight to this thing since I got it, and it was sagging a lot, and I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on shock therapy springs. So for for 250 bucks, this was worth it to me to replace the tender springs. I was sitting at, I think, 12.5 ground clearance front and 11 3/4 rear, and it comes with 14.5 front, 14 rear. So with all that weight, even with preload, that's where my measurements were. I'm back up to 15 front, 14.5 rear. I still have skid plates coming, so I have a little extra weight coming. But these front springs, the tenders are a whole lot taller. The color's pretty close too. So they're not that hard to install. There's my factory ones. You can actually even see they're a little bit bigger. I don't have a micrometer, but the diameter is a little bit bigger around on the replacement ones too. Pretty easy install. The fronts you got to take off the machine. No big deal. 17 millimeter nut and bolt down there, and then underneath the hood up in here, I don't know if you can see it, you take the hood off to do it, but these hoods are a pain. It's another 17 millimeter nut and bolt to pull that off. What I did was, before I jacked it off the ground, I bought these Orion Motor Tech spring compressors off Amazon. Super easy. Before I even jacked it off the ground, I put them around the spring, so when I jacked it up, it was already starting to compress. So when you pull it off, it's real easy. There's a cup on the bottom. Behind this piece of rubber, there's this little cup that holds the spring in place. Once the spring's compressed, you gotta compress it a little bit more, but you just lift the cup up and pull it out. And then you take your preload adjustment rings on the front and you run them all the way up to the top, because the new springs are a lot longer. And once you get them on there and get your cup back on, you can run it back down and compress it back down so you can get everything to fit again. It's not that big of a deal. They tell you on the front, you should be 3 inches from the top with your preload rings, which are up there. I don't know the technical term. 3 inches didn't get me enough ground clearance because I still have a bunch of weight. I think I'm 3 3/4 inches from the top, and that put me at 15 inches in the front. On the rear, you don't have to take the spring off. You just take the bottom bolt off after you jack it up and do the same thing. I put the spring compressor on before I jacked it off the ground, so it already had some of the compression removed. But even these aren't that much longer. You don't have to put it up that far. Mine are sitting at 8 inches down from the top, and that gave me the 14.5 in the back. I've gone about 25 miles since I put them on, and I don't really notice a ride difference. I definitely have the ground clearance difference, but it's not bad at all. Like I said, that's the factory ones. They match pretty close. I think it's worth the money. I mainly just rode on some back roads around here. I haven't done any trails yet, but I'm gonna go to some trails on Sunday. So I'll post down in the comments my opinions, but I'm pretty happy with it, especially getting back to the ground clearance again, because that was my biggest thing with all that extra weight. So pretty easy install though. I mean, anybody can do this. I think it took me 2 hours to do it by myself, and that was just because I'd never done it before.